Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Hey, y'all know what time it is. Grab your vices, relax, and let's get straight to it. This is Ms.B, straightforward with Ms.B, and this is episode 56 of the podcast. I hope everybody has had a wonderful, wonderful week. I guess the past 2 weeks, it seems like my schedule has kind of changed from posting podcast episodes on a weekly basis to now a little bit more on every 2 weeks. They give me give me some time to do what I got to do, come up with some very decent topics, a lot more um in depth as far as information goes and what I want to share with the public. So, thank you guys for continuing to support the podcast, and we gonna get into a tricky little topic today. And the reason why I chose this particular topic is because of um an article that I came across um in regards to an alleged the death of a 6-year old, Jalayah Eason, out of the Bronx, New York. I don't know if anyone who's listening have heard about this situation. Um, but let's first start off with a little bit of detail as to what happened in this incident. Okay, so according to this is the New York Daily News, a mother whose 6-year-old daughter was found dead in their Bronx apartment was given supervised release today as she faced a potential homicide charge. Lanijah Eason, which is the mother's name, was waiting to be fitted for an ankle monitor before getting sent back to the home where her daughter, little Miss Jalayah, was found unconscious early Friday in the family's home. Authorities are awaiting autopsy results before determining if homicide charges are warranted in this case. In the meantime, Eason has been hit with child endangerment charges for allegedly neglecting and harming her other two children, which is an 8-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. The investigation into this case cause and manner of the defendant's 6-year-old child death continues, stated the Bronx District Attorney Darcel Clark in a statement. She was given supervised release at arraignment. She will remain in custody until an ankle monitor is installed. Court documents describe an insect infested apartment that reeked of rotten food, feces, and urine. A little bit backstory: cops who responded to a 911 call observed soiled clothing and linen in open containers of food stacked up into piles and covering the floors of the apartment. The young boy had countless small lacerations in various stages of healing on his back, scalp, arms, and legs. This was according to a criminal complaint. Cops also said that the little boy had a laceration to his forehead and a deep healing laceration on his scalp. The surviving girl had a long discolored scar to the right side of her waist and a widespread discolored rash to her inner thighs and buttocks. I take care of my kids by myself. This is what the mother, Miss Eason, told cops, according to their complaint. Quote unquote, no other adults live in my apartment with me and my kids. Neighbors recall the family's residence as a house of horrors, with Eason constantly screaming at Jalayah and her siblings. One neighbor described hearing howls from the apartment before cops found the little girl with bruising and trauma to her chest and neck. Jalayah was pronounced dead shortly after 4 o'clock a.m. Friday at Lincoln Hospital. Jalayah's siblings were in the apartment at the time. They were unharmed, although police spotted bruises and what appeared to be ligature marks from old injuries on both children, cop sources stated. "Mommy hit me." This is what the boy told police when asked, although the child said the assault happened in the past. The Administration for Child Services responded to the home for allegations involving the oldest child at least twice, according to a police source with knowledge of the case. And this particular article, again, just stating my sources, this is the New York Daily News. This was written by Thomas Tracy and Leonard Green and published on their website on May 30th, 2023. First, before I just, we get deeper into this discussion, my condolences goes out to the other loved ones, grandparents, maybe cousins, uncles, aunts, if she have them, of the little girl Jalayah. Also, I would like to send out my prayers to the other two children, the 8-year-old and the 3-year-old. Hopefully at this time, they are either, in custody with Child Protective Services, or a relative, have went and picked up and, is taking care of these kids as of today. Because the 30th was, 2 days ago? These type of situations had me thinking about the unfortunate relationships between children and their mothers. I know that we hear about situations such as this with other, with fathers as well, or grandparents, or a aunt, a uncle, or a cousin who may have been, abusing abusing their little cousin, their niece, their nephew, their grandchild. But specifically for this particular episode, I just wanted to mainly focus on, these disheartening relationships between mothers and their children, or if they only have one child, and their child. Before we go a little bit deep into this discussion, I did want to pull up a few statistics just to give everyone just an idea of the magnitude of these type of situations. So, according to the Statista.com website, and this was published February 2023. This was a survey done in the year 2021. And the data basically came from the National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System, which the acronym is NCANDS. NCANDS collects the case level. This is case level data on children who received Child Protective Services response in the form of an investigative or alternative response. Of course, each state has its own definition of child abuse and neglect based on standards set by federal law. Child abuse is defined as any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker which results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse, or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which presents an imminent risk or serious harm to that child. So, just to give everyone perspective, the number of child abuse victims that was reported in 2021 by each state's, well, as a collective of the state level child protective services, in 2021 alone, there were 210,746 victims who were abused or neglected or even murdered, in this case, by their mother. Hear that again. There were 210,746 victims who were failed by their mothers. And that's the top of the list. Second to that were fathers. There were 132,363 victims that were failed by their fathers. Children who were in two-parent homes came in third with 111 and 100,000 victims. 31,000 were relatives. A friend or neighbor, it says on the list, 4,000 victims. And 1,854 child abuse victims by a foster parent. Now, if we go even deeper into the statistics, child abuse rate in the United States, this is again for the year 2021 alone, by race, ethnicity of the victim, right? Number one on this list, this particular data set, this is the percentage rate per 1,000 kids. Number one on the list, there were American Indian or Alaska Native victims. Number two on the list to that was, the American Indian or Alaska Native, that was 15.2%. Number two that came in was African American at 13.1% per every 1,000 kids. This type of situation is so disheartening, again, to hear when mothers take it upon themselves to abuse their kids. And when I mention the word abuse in this context, I'm speaking of across the gamut. You know, to me, abuse encompasses any type of abuse, or any negative act that we can categorize as being a form of abuse. Could be neglect, starvation. It could be emotional abuse, manipulation. It could be constant arguments. It could be, of course, assault of some sort, whether it's sexual or physical assault. But to know that mothers are number one on this list in the year of 2021 as being the perpetrators of these type of relationships is very, very scary. And like I said, we can Google, we can look at the news. It seems like every other day we may hear of some instance where a quote unquote mother has done something crazy and evil to their own kids. And it has me thinking, like, why bring, and and then we had that discussion some episodes back about postpartum depression. Some females, having going through psychosis. They have these psychotic episodes maybe after giving birth. Like the lady I believe we was talking about down in Florida, that killed her 3 kids. We talk about these different situations, and again, I do think that mental health definitely plays a part in it, whether it's the mother, like I said, going through these mental episodes, or the mother maybe deals with being bipolar and just haven't been diagnosed maybe, or even medicated for it. um However, there is a large number of women who may not necessarily suffer from these types of things, and they're just plain old evil. They're evil. Now, whether or not they're evil out of just their own right, or they're evil because of uh maybe childhood traumas and things that they personally went through, and once they got older they carry these things with them, and then it just happened to transfer over through them and onto their kids. Whatever the case may be, there are women in this world who are plain old evil. And if you know that if you understand that about yourself, if you have done self-reflection upon yourself, and you truly know who you are and what you are capable of, good or bad, it's hard for me to understand why you then have kids. Why do you put yourself in that predicament to have kids? Now, speaking from a personal standpoint, although I pretty much kind of grew up to where I always knew that I didn't want to have kids, right? I think a portion of that, with me making that decision for myself, was some emotional, mental traumas that I kind of went through as a child. And the last thing that I wanted to do was bring all that negativeness, that negative energy onto, you know, onto a kid. And I think that's probably part of maybe just the lifelong fear that I've always had, and the reason why I've never wanted to have kids. Cause you just never know. You just never know. I think it might have been a portion of my life, late 30s, early 40s, where I did think about hey, maybe I do need to, procreate, bring someone in this world so that I can pass my legacy down to someone. But then, that was a quick thought in and out, and I just didn't have that feeling again. Who knows? Maybe something will change. And I'm not a bad person. I turned out to be a wonderful, despite I've turned out to be a wonderful human being who does understand who she is through and through. But hey, that is me. And I can't speak for everyone else. I can't speak for every other female in this world. But what I can kind of halfway speak to or just recognize is, based on these statistics, based on this situation that happened with little old Jalayah Eason, we know that something is terribly wrong in this world, and the people who decides to have kids and them wanting to hurt their own kids. Now, mind you, even in the article, this young lady stated, hey, there's no other adult in this household. I don't know if she might have had boyfriends that a boyfriend or somebody she could be possibly covering up for. Who knows? But she basically stated outright she's the only one to take care of them 3 kids by herself. And I'm sure for this young lady, it's a lot. It's a lot of hard work. But no matter how hard the work is at being a mother, you was in a situation where you chose motherhood. You chose the lifestyle for yourself. And if you have these young kids, you should know not to treat these kids. These kids ain't did nothing. They may get on your nerve. True enough. They may get on your nerve. You may have long days of work and you come home and you might ask them to eat the food and they don't want to eat the food or whatever the case may be, and they talk back to you. Yeah, these kids, they grown. But nothing should ever, 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 ever make a mother turn to violence. Ever. But I'm not speaking too soon on this situation. I'm just reading from the article itself because I do believe in, letting the law do what they supposed to do. Investigation, doing a thorough investigation on what happened, what could have happened, and allowing law enforcement to settle this thing out and find out what truly happened in this situation. If it was a case where she was taking care of her kids herself, needed help. Now, another thing that we need to kind of talk about too in this situation is that neighbors, I'm because Child Protective Services had shown up to this apartment, a couple of times before, regarding some other incidents. I don't know if this is because neighbors had been maybe calling them, letting them know, hey, I'm hearing a lot of screaming and things, crazy noises out of this apartment. Can you please come by, do a welfare check? You might have some neighbors who did that. However, I'm sure you probably have neighbors in the same apartment building who has never thought about calling the cops, who's never thought about calling CPS to send someone out, and probably have heard these howlings and these loud cries and things of that nature going on in this apartment for quite some time and just didn't say shit, because how we are. We always like to mind our own business, but sometimes minding our own business can be a true detriment. We can't. We got to understand that certain circumstances, we don't need to mind our own business. We need to be a little nosy, and then being a little nosy, then do what we feel we need to do. At least call the cops and say, hey, could you just, I'm hearing some strange noises. Can you please send someone out to do a welfare check? That's the least. And you can call in anonymously to do that. So for those neighbors who may have heard these things going on for quite some time, or even heard, maybe overheard some craziness going on the night of when this little girl was murdered, should have called, something could have, or maybe could have happened much sooner than what it did, as far as like the cops coming out and, unfortunately this little girl was deceased. But back to the subject, motherhood. Ladies, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we doing? Why are we making our kids subject to this torment? Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for everybody. If it's hard on you, it's a lot of programs out there that that may assist you. If you feel as though, hey, I'm getting to the point where I'm losing my mind, and these kids driving me crazy, and I just feel like something bad may happen, hey, seek some help. Seek some help. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Seek some help. Y'all mothers have to understand that, hey, it's okay. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay to, maybe get a mental evaluation. A lot of y'all need a mental evaluation. Especially in the black community. Because we always think ain't nothing wrong with us, or we so used to maybe growing up in that environment, seeing our parents or seeing our grandparents act a certain crazy ass way, and we think it's okay, and we've seen it generation after generation after generation, and we're so immune to it, to the point where we feel as though this is just normal activity. This is just normal activity. This is how it goes. This is how I'm supposed to act. No, the fuck it ain't. So we got to do better. And every time I hear of these cases, and I look at historical stuff all the time on the internet, documentaries, or true crime stories and things of that nature, and we just come across so many instances where the mother has either neglected kids, murdered the kids, like the one mother years ago where she put the baby in the oven. Like, what the fuck? What is wrong? It's not okay. And if we, as family members, relatives, neighbors, friends, or whatever the case may be, and we see this type of stuff happening, or we just see a situation and we feel as though, hey, this a little extra right here. You know what I'm saying? We need to be able to speak up. We need to speak up and let these mothers know, hey, this ain't the way to go. And if you keep acting like that towards your kids, I'm gonna call the police, or I might call the CPS. We need to take it that far. Because at this point, we don't want something terrible and tragic to happen. These kids deserve a life, deserve to live a fulfilling, productive, prosperous, joyous life. They deserve it. So we may continue this discussion, and I'll definitely like to hear your thoughts on this. As always, DM me your thought. Write it in the comments on YouTube, but or even on social media. My allergies are kicking in. Um, but I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts. Like, how do we help women? I'm all about pointing out what's wrong or just sharing my thoughts, but also trying to figure out solutions to these problems. Um, and I know that we can't save the world. However, each and every one of us can do our part. Um, can do our part. You know, I really do hate that this little girl's life had to be taken away. And now this and she looking at the pictures of the mother, she looks to be a young girl as well. Uh Maybe in her late 20s, early 30s, probably still in her 20s. So now her life is, unfortunately her life is, if she's found to be the one who's caused harm to her kids, of course they're gonna most definitely send her to prison, charge her and send her to prison, and now she'll be taken away from her kids. So everybody suffers in this type of situation. But I'm just curious as to, you know, what is it that we can do as a community to help safeguard these kids. I did want to touch on something else before we got out of here today. If you go back through the episodes, what? Um, um, dang, I just saw DC Young Fly. His baby mother Jackie passed away due to like some complications during a mommy makeover procedure. That's so sad. That is so sad. That is so sad. I know DC, shout out to, he's from Adamsville, west side of Atlanta. Shout out to him. Prayers to him and his family. And now he has his little girls he got to take care of. Hey, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I did want to give a quick little update. So, episodes, many episodes ago, and you guys can search through those. We talked about Nicole Linton, the female over in LA who was traveling like 130 miles per hour and crashed and killed all those people. I believe 11-month-old was killed as well. There was a recent update in regards to her. Nicole Linton's defense attorney has made quite an argument in court recently, claiming that she may have suffered a seizure when she traveled 130 miles per hour through a busy intersection in LA before crashing and killing 6 people. The incident, which occurred back in August 2022, led to the demise of a pregnant woman named Asheri Ryan, her 11-month-old son Alonzo, and her boyfriend Reynold Lester, who were headed to a prenatal care checkup. 2 other victims also died at the scene at the intersection of La Brea and Slauson Avenues. Linton's attorney, however, Jacqueline Sparagna, has since told a judge that they plan on bringing on board a neurologist that specializes in seizures. This strongly indicates that there will be an argument made about the possibility of Linton, a nurse from Texas, suffered a burst of uncontrolled electrical activity in the brain in the moments leading up to the crash. The attorney stated that we are going to put on a defense at the preliminary hearing, which is rare. Everything that the doctor has reviewed is consistent with her having a seizure. Nicole wasn't sleeping for days, and insomnia can cause seizures. Added that those suffer a seizure while driving usually feel their body get tense. When she alleges that she would explain why Linton's foot was still on the pedal when she caused the fiery crash. Prosecutors, however, had previously argued there was no evidence backing claims that Linton had a seizure behind the wheel. So that'll be interesting to see what this doctor, I guess first it was mental issues that she had been suffering. Now it's seizures. So it's kind of like all over the place at this point, but it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of that. So anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning in for this kind of a little bit on the deeper side episode here today. Thank you again for always tuning in. Follow us, share, like, subscribe. We're on all podcast streaming platforms as well as social media. And thank you all again, as always, for the support. Peace out.